Hi, and welcome to another edition of Show Me Your Workflow here on the Event Lighting channel. Today's guest is Matt Wimpelberg from Nashville, Tennessee in the US of A. Matt is 28 years old and primarily do busking shows at some local venues in Tennessee. Matt is. We had some technical difficulties today starting up this whole thing, so we're going to jump a little bit weird into the conversation. I hope you are okay with that. Let's talk about Matt's past and what he has done before, and then we're going to jump into his show file later on, and he's going to show us through his entire way of building the show file. And it is really interesting, and it is really complex in many ways. But he uses recipes, he uses a lot of macros and stuff like that. So I think you're going to find it really interesting. So let's jump straight in.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, here in the U.S. I've been in lighting since about 16, but primarily working in GrandMA3 actually since August of last year of 22. I came up, I had some DJ in mind. I told them, hey, I want to do this thing, and I bought some lights, and I learned Chave Show at the time, and that was fun, very quick and easy to throw together. But realizing I really enjoy this, and I want to learn how to take it further. And so I had downloaded the MA2 software, with it being free, the most amazing thing, and just started learning. I like to claim that I am forever resident at YouTube University. So everything I learned on MA2 was either trial and error or a whole lot of YouTube. It's been awesome being able to learn MA3 and what MA saw needed to change, take away, add, all that type of stuff, going from MA2 to MA3. And again, with it being such a fresh software, there really wasn't a lot of tutorial videos out there. So luckily I did find the Event Lighting channel. I did find a few others. After I got to a certain point where I'm like, I'm really feeling comfortable with this, I actually started making some of my own tutorial videos. Part of it was, I would like to be part of giving to the MA community, but it was also a little bit for me where a lot of the touring LDs that come through the venue I work at, they're still running MA2 software, whether they're on MA2 or MA3 hardware, they're still running MA2 software. And so I wanted to be able to find a way to better talk to them about the software itself. I want to find a better way to make them help some of them realize that the jump from MA2 to MA3 maybe is not as daunting as it first appears to be. So I started making these tutorial videos so I could better learn how to talk about it. And it's really helped me, and I've already seen kind of the fruition of that in how I'm talking with some of those LDs that come through. And my YouTube channel, for anyone that might be interested, is MW Lighting, all lowercase, no spaces.
We'll put a link in the description to make sure that people can find it afterwards.
Awesome, I appreciate it. It's been a thing I've been able to work on in my free time, so I can't say I have the most consistent upload schedule, but I do have some fun plans for it in the future, and hopefully getting Event Lighting previewed in mind as well here in the near future.
How do you find MA3? You came from MA2. How does it work for you? Do you have any major issues? Did you experience any crashes or anything? Is it a stable platform for you to work on?
Sure. So when I downloaded it, we were still at version 1.5, which it was just really starting to gain its viability in the consistency of the program. I think there were still a few bugs that would cause crashes. Luckily, I didn't dig too far deep enough to find many of those. I think I've come across one since working primarily in it since July in prep for working at that venue in August. So, my only, I wouldn't say gripes, but things I wish would not have left is absolutely the MA2 effects engine. The simplicity of creating effects, the simplicity of creating bounce effects, one shots, be able to set your highs and lows, and really, be able to have templates and selective effects and whatnot. There's a lot of things in the learning that you would have to give up going from the MA2 effects engine to phasers. However, it's not only phasers that they replaced Opportunity with. It was also with their recipes, which I run almost all of my show file out of recipes. Recipes, I think, was one of the greatest things that they could have possibly added to the MA3 software. I'm finally starting to dig into magic presets. I've actually got a video coming on that here in the near future. They definitely made some amazing additions in the MA3 software that it's one of those where I would selfishly wish I could combine MA2 and MA3, everything that they have together. It may not be the option, but for what they did give, there's a lot of viability, and now we're at 1.8.8.2. Yeah, and I'm hearing murmurings of what might be coming here in the near future. And it's honestly just becomes a point where it's just more to look forward to. And I hope that they're taking into consideration other LDs that really have taken that deep dive, what suggestions they might have, because they're doing very well. It's just we can get some of those last little bits taken care of, and the viability will just continue to go up.
Yeah, but I also think, I mean, it's gonna come, especially bounce effects and single shots, as you mentioned. That's one of the most requested features in many of the internet forums you can find out there. So I definitely think they're going to work on that, not in this software, but in the future, definitely.
Yeah, I hope to see them. I really miss them.
Yeah. But should we have a look at your show file to see, and maybe you can explain how you do stuff and how you build it, how you structure it, and how it works for you?
Sure, let's do it.
Let's just push this one. I can actually just push this one, then we can see you and your show file just for the beginning anyway.
Perfect, let's do it. Let's see, so in my show file, it's all punting. I've got nothing connected with time code. Really, the main thing that I try to keep available is just the addition of other fixtures. The house does have their own flown rig that never changes. However, sometimes there are some ground packages that do change. Not necessarily the tour's ground package, but for some events, I'm the one actually creating the ground package. So I don't want to have to keep going in and out and cloning and reassigning and anything like that. I'd rather have it available to where it can either be put in or taken out with as few factors of the show file being changed.
That's where you use recipes, just for the...
Oh yes, yeah. Recipes save me on that like crazy. The biggest thing I feel like that absolutely factors having a multitude of different types of fixtures is actually in the bottom left. If you're able to see my cursor right down here. Yes. This is just one big 8x4 grid, and basically all it does is it'll either add or take out groups of fixtures at a time. So like, for instance, these four, so I've got, on the left side, you can see G1, 2, 3, and 4. Yes. And then along the top, you see the different fixture types. The house rig are what I have selected here, spot, beam, wash, and MH1. G1 through G4 are connected to my first 4 faders on the command wing we have there. So no matter what I put in, so I could even select other fixture types, those are now added to that master. And now, just by that, I can either bring them in, take them out. I can change which ones, I want in a different, fader master. So let's say I wanted to reverse this entire thing. No problem. I can just quickly go through and boom. Now, my first fader is now what I name MH1 or moving head 1, which is some Visi washes. The Z19.
So how does that work behind the scenes? What is happening in the console when you do that?
Sure. So one quick part that I want to hit before I get directly to that is I've definitely tried to make everything, all my views on the right side connect to different sections, whether it be live or in the programmer. So program is just simple effects, or program is simple presets and pull items in general. Effects is all recipes, and execs is where I bring those pull items into recipes, or the few that are actually executors. So if we hop into execs right here, dimmer execs, and we go group dim execs. So, which I actually need to rename to just group execs, because this used to only be connected to anything with the dimmer. I've now got it connected to, colors and a multitude of other things other than just dimmer. So basically, you can see the grid down here. This is all just, it's one big layout with a bunch of labels and a bunch of macros inside of it. So let's say, if I were to click this spot 1 in group 1, if I go up here and click on the macro, we can kind of quickly see what is going on in the background. So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need guests on this show to make it happen. So if you are a GrandMA3 programmer, I would love to hear from you. You don't have to be skilled. You can be brand new. That's fine with me. You can be working with theater. You can be working with tours. You can do corporate. That doesn't matter. As long as you want to be a guest on this show, and we can look into your show file the way we are doing today. So please sign up for the list below, and I will be in touch with you. So let's continue.
I'm taking, so S1 with the asterisk is just my spot 1. Sometimes we run flown spots and ground spots, so S1 is always flown. After selecting that group, it takes it, I store it into my G1 group, and then it just merges. It doesn't overwrite, because I want it to combine with any of the fixtures that are in there, and no confirm that I don't have any crazy pop-ups while it's on, and then just clear all. And then so I always make sure that my programming is always taken care of first before appearance has any changes, because the main thing I want to see is that the lights are doing what I want them to do, not the screen showing what I want the screen to show. So I always put the programming at a higher priority than just the nice appearance. After I select it, it changes the appearance to what I've called green fill, which is one of the many appearances I have in my appearance pool at macro 1201, which is that macro. I also do all of this in blind. That way nothing, it's all taken care of almost in a separate programmer that is not viewed on the stage. So this is a 2-part macro. That's why there's a second go in here. The second part, so after the blind off, then the next action would be after the macro is pressed again. So then basically all it does is the same thing, except instead of merging that spot 1 group into the G1 group, we're now removing it. So fixtures can go in, fixtures can go out. Again, the programming is ahead of the appearance. It just goes to a black fill. Again, at the same macro, blind off, and that's pretty much it. And then right up here, you can see my G1 through G4 groups. And then as far as the recipe for those go, my playbacks, I can just open. So I just made one queue. It had nothing stored in it. I started a recipe down here at the bottom. I selected group 501, which is my G1 group. And then in dimmer, I just put dimmer preset full. That is a universal preset, so regardless of what group is selected, it will the full preset will automatically connect with that group. And that's pretty much it. I can also show you my 3D let me see if I can make this work correctly. Oh, there we go.
It looks like it's working.
Yeah. So let's say I had just the MH1, those zoom washes. If I bring that up, you can see them. And then, if I add spots in there, they'll jump right in. Because the recipe is all just like one group, if anything is added to the group, it automatically jumps in. There is no fading. So if I make any changes, it's typically when the fader master is down. So that's pretty much how this runs. On this screen, I do have playbacks for each individual fixture type as well, but I have come to find out very quickly that this expedites my workflow incredibly quickly.
Yeah. So this is all, I presume, in setup when you patch all this when you know what your ground package is, or how do you go about this?
Yeah, so I typically build that ground package so I know. I mean, I'm worrying about it all, not just the addressing, but also the power distribution, just the general signal flow going from one tower over to the next one. Um,
Yeah.
so I'll basically build it all in the show file as far as the patching goes. After I have that, then I'll worry about power, and after that's done, of course, in my program. Um, in my special groups, that's just where I might make any changes over to, let me switch this back. You should see that in a second. You should see, all the different groups I might have. Not all
Yeah.
of them are
Yeah.
directly connected to that, grid of fixtures. Some of them are some special, some of them are additive. That way I can take them out if I don't like them. But that's pretty much it for that part.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it's very versatile when you want to take something in or take something out. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, no, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's like I said, I could have all the fixtures on all at the same time, or I could just have a certain select ones going at a same at once, and it expedites that workflow very quickly.
Yeah,
Let's
cool.
see something. Uh, is, are there any hot points that after you've seen my screen one of the show file? Anything that you specifically want to dive into?
Well, no, I mean, for me, it's very important to show other users how you can build a show file, and especially like the mechanics behind it and the thought behind it, because uh, this is for inspiration, so people can inspire to say, okay, I need this part could be really cool in my show, or what I experienced from the last session I had with Nathan is that we get a lot of questions afterwards on show files and how it works and how it's built and why he did certain things. And I think you can expect that as well when we go live with this interview. I
For
think
sure.
that's the cool part of it.
Yeah. Well, then in that case, I guess I'll just keep diving into how I created my general punt workflow. Um, so we can select our groups over here on the right, in the center section, we can see this is all just position information. So I've got basically a all position that, this is just like a go-to. So it would give me this pop-up for, here, let me turn some lights on. I can show you how it looks.
So you use the pop-ups during your shows simply to select a new position or something different.
Well, there's a combination, and I'll show that here in just a second. So my all position is this macro is just a go-to. So it'll open my sequence, which I've built with recipes again, where I've just got some simple, quick ones built. So if let's say I've got wide or low selected right now. Let's say I went X1 low, lower out, which all those words are just a combination of all the recipes of the positions the recipes have pulled together.
Yeah.
So it's basically loaded it, which you can tell this used to be blue. Now it's red with like a empty center. When I press go, they'll immediately go to it. You might be able to see that change. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So now I don't have to use the go to all the time. I can just press go and it'll continue just going through that exact same sequence, but I'm bypassing the go-to. It's just automatically connecting to the next one. I've got individual fade times down here, so if I want them to snap, I can press position fade 0 and then go to the next one, and they'll jump. Above that is just my main 3 moving fixture types. I can do very specific X and Y positions with them. So all it does, same deal where left side is go to and load, and the right side is the trigger. So I could say spots, let's say I wanted them X2, and I could either fire it right then, or if I know I want a X and Y look, I could go higher on the tilt position, and then I can just go boom and boom, and they'll immediately take. I can also set them on the same fade times that the main position sequence was taking. So I can change those on the fly however I want. If I know at the end, beginning or end for like changeovers, especially if I'm looking for a very specific thing, I can either make a sequence with those specific presets and just store that in another fader, or I can call those same presets on here with recipes and essentially get the exact same effect. So it's just a little bit of redundancy for me. That's all it comes out to. I like having as much in front of me without it being over cluttered. So I can't say I use this all the time, but I have used it sometimes, and I really do like having it. To the right of that, I do have another layout pool where basically I just have different layouts available here. I've got my dimmer execs here. So let's say I wanted my wash to begin fading. So wash is in my G2. So I'll just press that. And you might be able to see, speed that up a little bit. They're kind of jumping around, or I could just throw them all. I can throw them all into a fade. So they'll all start doing that. I used to have a fade time, selectable fade time, but I started to realize I just always used the 1 second fade time, and so I took that out.
There's no reason to have it anymore.
Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So can you? I mean, you were in the left side where you were working just before. When you do all this load logic and you can like choose between loading and not loading, or go to or not go to, how is that built?
Sure. So if I go back into my execs again, separating out what you're trying to do, that's everything to me. So if I go down execs and then position execs right here, basically
so that's basically the back end of what we are seeing on the other side.
Yes. Yeah. This is everything on the back end. This is how I create that live, punt page. So all it is for the position recipes or sequences, it's just actually a total of 7, or sorry, excuse me, total of let me do quick math. 13 sequences. Yeah, sorry. So one sequence is designated as my go-to and loading, and the other one is set up for the actual firing of moving those fixtures to a specific preset through the recipe. So on the left side, sorry, let me back out so you can see it again. The left group of 6 right here are my load sequences. There's actually nothing stored in them. It's all just command information. So if we go over here and expand that out a little bit. So
you're basically just triggering the other side.
Yeah. So yeah, it's nothing but commands for the other sequence that's correlated. So we're in the spot X queue. It would go to the spot X queue for the actual where the actual information is being stored. So load Q1 page 12.206, and then label macro X spot straight loaded. That way I know, hey, my straight tilt preset has been loaded. So we can, let's say,
it's basically, that's a very cool workflow and quite simple when you dive into it. Then it's actually quite simple what it does.
Yeah. So again, because that command line says load Q1, not go Q1, all it does. So if I were to click this and let's say I did that straight, we can see that now on the right group of 6, the spot. We're so sorry. We're in pan, not tilt. Excuse me. Now the straight pan position queue is now loaded in what will be fired. So we can see, it's popping up loaded because it's ready to go. It's ready to hear that go command. All that's happening in there is this one I don't actually have the recipes in. These are but I am going to change them over to recipes here soon. These are queues with the presets directly stored in them. It will once I hit that go button, it will, fire that queue. And then after that, there's command information there as well saying, this macro, label it straight, and then change that where it did say straight loaded. Now it will say spot X. So we can see that fire live. So right now, in this grid, we can see straight loaded. As soon as I hit like the go button, it's now saying spot X again. That way I know it's that quick reference. You may have a quick second to see it, but I can go right back to clicking spot X, knowing I'm about to change the spot pan. So that's
so
that's
the position it's in now.
Yes, it does also change. It's, spot X is ready to be loaded again, but straight is what's currently going. One addition I do eventually want to add is whenever I hit the go button on my all positions, is that all of them change to show what has been fired. That's quite a bit more in the back end, and it doesn't allow for a lot of changes. If I change what the position is in a recipe, I now have to change what the new label will be, which is a lot of manual changes, whereas recipes are one click and you're done. So I'm trading off on that one, but we'll see. I might make that addition here soon.
Yeah, but it looks like a show file where you spent quite a bit of hours to make this work.
Oh yeah, there was probably at least 20. I mean, this is also like version 117. Like this is not version 1. Yeah, version 1 took me about 20 hours because I was also learning, and it was gaining just enough information to get a punt file put together. And then as I started doing it more routinely, it was, okay, what do I want to see and what do I want to have access to? So that's where I got to this point.
Yeah.
Really
cool. Can we dive deeper into your show file, or what do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is one big thing I want to hit, but I want to save that for the end, as like my grand finale. But no, so further to the right of my position layout, I do also have the dimmers like we just looked at, my movement executors. So basically same deal. Rather than it being a load, it is an actual fire. So let's say I wanted my, all of them, or let's say even just my spot circle, this would go anti-clockwise. I do currently have them, if I'm not mistaken, nope, they're all one continuous flow, not mirrored. So even though spot circle it does show as selected, we can see that the spots aren't moving. One thing I wanted to make sure I had in my MA3 show file was a similar workflow in MA2 where I basically had size masters. Now there was a lot of remote stuff you had to do. There was some additional workflow that you had to do to make the size fader work the way you wanted it. But if I bring up my move effects fader, we can see that now the higher I bring that fader up, the more they are moving. So, for instance, right now we can see all the fixtures that we have up, the spots and those moving washes. Those are now moving in the movement effect that we have put on them. I can also change all this live, so I could tell those I just want them straight. Now, again, you may have just seen that jump. That's another piece I am in the midst of figuring out, which is instead of them all running through one recipe, have them run through their own. That does allow them to fade back to 0 in their position movement. So if there's anything that anybody takes away from this workflow, it's definitely that the programming never stops. You always figure out something new you want to change. So this is just where I've gotten to at this point, and there's plenty of additions to come.
But that's also because a file like this kind of evolves, and your need for what you wanted to do evolves with it.
Yes, absolutely. Where, so like my group grid that I made, I didn't make that till probably 2 months ago, and I've been there for coming on 7, almost 8 months. I'm terrible at quick math, but somewhere since August. I did not have that from the get-go. So when I once I got to a point where I'm like, I wonder if I could do this. And then on the back end, I started working on it and created that. And, I worked the kinks out and now it works seamlessly. I'm like, okay, cool. I just did that. I wonder what else I can change to make this punt file work more seamlessly.
Yeah, but it's also it speaks into how personal a show file is, because you need to know the logic behind it. Otherwise, you'll make it work the first time, and then something breaks, and then you kind of sort of can figure it out, and suddenly everything falls apart because you don't know where to look, or you don't have the mindset of that show file.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's been a few instances where other LDs, they'll come in with a tour, but for whether it be the production finances or whatever, they may have not come in with a desk, with any type of you know control lighting desk. So sometimes they're using my show file. So that's been a fun learning curve of, like, showing them how I think through my show file in a way that makes sense to them. And sometimes some of them get the hang of it. A lot of times they don't, but it's not a fault of theirs. It's just because I've built this around the things that I know I would use, the things I want to see, the things I want to have available. Every LD has a different type of workflow. This currently works for me, as well as all the additions I want to make. But different LDs aren't worried about having, on my move execs, each fixture type having its own movement type. They may want, if I say circle, I want all of them to go circle, so.
But that's the difference between working for yourself and working for a system. It's kind of hard to do perfect on both ends, because you need simplicity when you have to put someone else into your show file. You need simplicity so anyone with little or no experience can actually operate it when the band bring a friend or a father or something who's doing lights for them, which happens.
Yes.
So you need simplicity in some thought, and doing that combination of simplicity and that extremely advanced show file you have is kind of in opposite directions, isn't it?
Yes. It's simple to me, but that's because I took the time to build it and I know where things are. I know how things are routed and mapped. I would say I do intend to maybe make like some type of way simple backup punt file. That way, if I do need to hand off the desk to another person, rather than just the DMX lines, I'm actually handing off the entire desk for someone else to use. It's a much simpler setup. But like I said, 99% of the time, if someone from if the house rig is being used, or if the house console is being used, I'm the one on it. So that's where I've like, okay, I really want to dive in and do this, and could it leave some people in the dark that maybe last minute are like, oh, by the way, we didn't bring a console. Yeah, maybe it could, but that's where maybe I could back up. That's where, I could back up with a second show file to where they have exactly everything they need at their fingertips, and they can make the changes they want that won't affect my show file whatsoever.
One of the main things I've learned in building this show file is that while it is very specific to me, not everybody can grasp it. And I think that speaks highly to everybody's different types of LDing, or like what it is they want to have available, what it is they want to be able to quickly throw on and make this effect go, or if they just, they specifically want just my spots on this first fader instead of it being able to be selectable. I know in my workflow that I can make whatever I want happen live instead of always having to hop back in the programmer and change things around. But that's specific to my workflow. So
we are working in a concept where there's no standard of anything. So there's no right or wrong. I talked to Nathan last episode about that as well. It's all up to the individual. So that means that it's going to go in opposite directions for different people.
And one of the coolest things I've recognized with watching other touring LDs that come in is that, first off, I always make sure I'm not in their space if I am trying to observe their workflow. But I do tell them I like learning other people's workflow, because there are things from there are things that they will be educated on in their programming that I have yet to learn. But
Yes.
me watching them, that could be the moment where I'm like, ooh, I want that, or I want to implement something of similarity. Now, a lot of
Yes.
times, like I said, most of the time their stuff is time coded, so there's not always that availability of seeing what's happening when they're moving through things live. But of the few times where they are punting through, I'm able to take away a lot of their stuff, take away from what I'm seeing on their show file, I should say, because their groove helped them figure out a major piece to their show file. So it's a never-ending learning, which I absolutely love. It is an absolute pleasure of mine to always just continue learning this, because the opportunity is literally endless.
Yeah, but it's a time-consuming hobby.
Oh my goodness. The amount of time I've spent on this is unlike any other job.
But as long as it's fun.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Shall we go back and have a look?
Yeah, we can
on
keep
your
going.
show file again?
Sure. So I'm gonna bring the spot move back down, which I'll show that real quick too. So I move effects. All that is just it's a sequence with a recipe inside of it, where I've got my specific groups. These are different from the G1 through 4 that we saw earlier. These are the specific moving heads, just because I don't want to, if I said, group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, if I had a non-moving fixture in one of those groups, then I've now wasted that space. So these are specific to moving heads that I would have in my show file.
Yeah.
All that's happening on the back end, same as many other places. These are all just referencing a phaser, movement phaser. I don't assign any matrix to them because some of them already have matrix information in them. So I want the recipe to automatically assume that preset matrix information rather than me trying to insert it on the back end. And then in the handle, I've changed the fader to a temp fader instead of just master, because that allows me for it to be additive. It allows it to be brought in and taken out. So that that allows me, if I were to bring it up just a little bit like this, I can get them doing their circle, but very, very small.
So that's how you control the size of the movement.
Yes. Yeah. It's basically a size master for all of my movement, phasers. I do have a movement speed or a speed master connected to it, to where I can have them going almost berserk in that small circle, or I can have them look like, they're moving, but you can barely see it. And sometimes that's a very nice, just simple theatric. If the music has come down, it's a very soft, quiet part of the music. There can still be some emotion in movement, but it's not overbearing. It's not overpowering. So pairing that movement effects sequence with the recipes, along with the movement speed, you're able to, not every circle is going to look like the last circle, right?
Yeah.
So, and on top of that, if I change the position, so if I just put fade 2 and go there, it's still doing the circle, but now in a different place.
Yeah, so that's just a relative movement on top of a position.
Yes. All of my movements are relative. Positions are all absolute. I did that, obviously very specifically so that I can stack the phaser on top of an absolute position. But it's just that safety net to make sure that one thing is not overriding the other. Then if I were to go off on it, now trying to recall that last position and whatnot, it just gets chaotic. It has the ability to get chaotic very quickly. So it helps expedite that part. What else is there? I do have a spot tilt. This is cool for you can kind of see the spots just moving up and down. I'm actually controlling that on a fader. You can just see them going up and down. Basically, once again, all that is a temp fader. I'll open that up real quick. that's just a temp fader with the high value, like the position, the tilt position high stored in, and then once again, it's just it's just a temp fader. So basically, all it's doing is staying additive. When I bring the fader down, it's taking out the addition of that high value. Whereas if the more I add it in, the more those lights begin to go up. The more I take it out, they're going down. So you can add some very, very quick, but very cool looking, like, if we just had a big hit and I knew it was coming up, I could prep it where it was up. And then I wish my touchscreen was multi-touch, because this would be a lot cooler to show.
Yeah.
But let's say they were faded out, and then I know it's coming, so I bring it up, and then they're coming down, and I've got the other lights doing some crazy movements and whatnot, and it's just an additional quick effect. If I also know it's gonna be a lot simpler, or for corporate events, because we do also have corporate people come through, I could just keep the spots high. I could put a gobo on them, I could put prisms on them, whatever, and just have them move throughout the ceiling. And basically, the corporate audience can still feel like, oh, we're doing a show, but I'm not blinding them the same way I would if it's a concert. So it's also the show file, in addition to being for live shows, it's also built in a way to where I can run very simple corporate stuff off of it. And it's not like I needed to add a lot of stuff to it anyway, but it helps.
But that's the cool thing about that's the cool thing about a busking show file. Versatility and options, that's basically what you need. You need to be prepared for anything.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So this is the only kind of like additive position preset that I've put in here, just because really with how wide I can get those spots, I'm not really worried about beams or anything else really doing the same, being able to react the exact same way. Let's see, moving down through the layouts, I basically just built these because I don't always need access to every single one of those. I could have cluttered my entire screen one with each different feature type, with dimmers, move, gobo. I could have done that. Or if I know I'm going to have this thing this way for a little bit, I can, let's say I want the gobo on and I want them on dots, which I call them. Cool, I can just hit that and I can go on to another page. Let's say, okay, I'm going to have prism on. Cool, now I can walk away and go to another page. And let's say I know I'm going to be affecting these dimmers for a little bit, or the dimmer, phasers and whatnot. I can just stay on this page and all that's going on, and I don't have to clutter up the rest of my screen one with every single feature type. So,
but how do you go back? If you want to reset everything, do you have a quick way of doing that?
I haven't added a quick way. A lot of times in between, like I'm not doing a ton of EDM where it's just constant. You always need to have the next thing ready. A lot of times it is, bands. It's DJs that are really putting their ebbs and flows. DJs more so for corporate events. So that alone is a lot simpler. So right now I don't have like an immediate off everything. I could go off and turn off certain sequences in that window, but a lot of times I'll just go back to those layouts, gobo off and prism off, and now we're back to where we were.
So one thing is to put great stuff into the moving lights. Another thing is to take them out again, because sometimes it has to be fast. So it's all about option. And when I program, the open wide and no gobo is the one I program first. So I know how to get out of it again.
Yeah, and you know what? Even you just saying that right there just already gives me the idea of how about making a all effects off, or all additions to other than open.
Other than intensity, pan, and tilt.
Right, exactly. So that's exactly what I was getting at earlier. Even just watching things on YouTube and picking and talking to other people, the idea of just adding all additional stuff off on one button, I'm about to add that after we are done here. So, it's
that's cool.
But last thing I have in this group of layouts is just a focus execs. Once again, I've got fade times and whatnot on it. But let's say I put fade 4 and my MH1, again, that's those moving washes. Right now they're narrow. I can hit wide, and now in the visualizer we can see they're just taking that 4 seconds to get wide. Same thing for the spots. So now, I can set those. I can set them and forget them. I could add those to a, snap back to additional stuff back at 0. But this workflow so far has worked for me. But again, that may want to be one of those things in the future where I'm like, all right, it's time to change this. I'm going to do this different now. So
yeah, but then again, then it could be because your need for change is there, because sometimes you have to do something different, and then the mindset of working in that kind of show file needs to be adjusted.
yes, exactly. Yeah. Let's see. One thing I do, again, right before I hit my well, maybe we're not there yet, but one thing I do want to show too is for those that don't have command wings or a touch screen, having the accessibility of certain quick functions. So you could go every time to the command section window, clicking this button. I've just got it on a different screen right now. Clicking the command section menu, and then let's say I wanted to store something, or I want to delete, or whatever. We have the addition of swipeys, which has been great. Quick thing like that is just if you click and hold, drag down, you now have your list of options there. On top of that, I also put a sequence of just command line information. So store, copy, move, delete, label, select, assign. Now, I built that before I really started using swipeys, but the nice thing is if there are certain other things I want to add in, you can just do that very quickly. And let's say I did have, let's say I wanted to copy something, we can now see in the command line, copy is now put in, and I can go on to the next thing. So that was a very quick but incredibly resourceful just user thing that I put together. I can't remember who I picked that up from, but that was from MA2 that I saw that. And again, before I got into swipeys, I started using those. So
yeah, and again, you can still use the hotkeys on your keyboard if you open the command section. You can use all the hotkeys from the on the keyboard. What was I trying to say?
No, it's okay. I think it was
if you remember all the shortcuts, and you can actually. I talked to a guy the other day who memorized all of them, so he could work really fast on his keyboard on PC because he remembered all the shortcuts. And I mean, I would never learn all those shortcuts, but of course it's an option. So if you want to work fast on PC, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I have good memory in certain areas, but remembering what each letter connects to like a certain function, I can't say I'm the best at. So that's where I just kind of fell back on the sequences with just command line information. But yes, no, shortcuts are fantastic. I should probably spend a little bit more time learning those shortcuts just to make my workflow a little bit easier.
Yeah, and there's also sometimes you don't have to type the entire word. I mean, if you press S, that's the same as writing store. So there's a lot of fast stuff built into the console, or into the onpc anyway.
Absolutely. Let's see. As far as everything I do on here is all screen one. And if I've ever ran a screen two, it's always just been additional. I may have my sequence a sequence pool on there. I may just do some quick programming on there that way I don't have to leave this page, especially if I'm in a live situation. But typically I only run one touch screen, and I'm only looking at this page. And I don't need a 3D page because I'm looking at the stage itself. So I've tried to make sure that my workflow is conducive to having one screen, one touch screen at that. This workflow has really worked for me. So the only other addition that I made was just a quick color fade. So let's say if I brought my beams in, should be those guys. There we go. Cool. That's in this top left section. Let's say I wanted them to kind of color fade to yellow, let's say. Since we're doing this, purple and yellow thing. let me take those spots out so you can see it better. Same deal where I have macros that basically just add or take away groups to groups to then a like template group essentially. So if I select beam right here, all that's doing is moving the fixtures that are in one group and adding them into another group that this recipe will then affect. So beam and yellow, and then we can see it's off right here. If I just hit fade 3, we can see that those are automatically jumping around. I have my movement speed, Speedmaster, and then I also have just another general Speedmaster. So I can slow that nice and slow, bring it down, or I can just, have them go crazy by bringing that Speedmaster up. So, and I can change that on the fly if I wanted to. I could do a sweep. I want to say I've gotten this one working correctly. Oh yeah, this is just basically like an in to out sweep essentially. And then rainbow, I figured that's pretty self-explanatory. It'll just take whatever I have selected here and make them do red, green, blue, and fading in between all the colors. So the last thing I really feel like, and this one I feel like is like so. I found this out like 3 weeks ago, and since then I implemented it that night, and I had another show the next day, and I was already using it. It's using sound. So both consoles and NPC can receive sound signal. Consoles have a sound in for onpc users or command wing users. I want to say no, the command wing does not have a sound in. It has a LTC in. But on the PC, you can connect a audio interface, and basically all it does is it will, you connect that to your computer, make sure you've got your drivers and whatnot. When you open MA3 after the audio interface is connected and everything, you'll have a drop-down list. I don't have that same audio interface that I normally use connected specifically in this instance, but you'll have a drop down for like your input. So for instance, let's say I just use the microphone that's on my PC. I could click that, and now you can see there are bands that are picking up my voice. If I were to tap near the microphone, which I'm doing now, you can see that it's starting to spike in certain bands. So you have your all, then there's basically 12 bands you're seeing here. The first one's all, the next 3 are low, mid, and high, and then the next 7 are band 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So one thing I started doing with that is actually just making, just for now, nothing too crazy in addition, I started making sound dimmer. It's just basically full, but it's sound active. So if I were to take, let's say I've got, let's go to my beams, and let's say I've got them on, let me go to a different one. Let me just do my all. That way we can make sure we see it. And then I fire that basically toggle. Now, if I bring this out, if you can hear me tapping.
Yes, it's a little bit out of sync, but that's because of the connection. You are halfway around the world from me, so your image and your audio is not in sync. So, but yes, I know what you mean. That's really cool.
Yeah. So that just helps, especially like, so what I've done with our, our audio guy that's there at front of house, he'll typically just give me a feed of the bass, or of the kick and the snare, I should say. So I'll run that into my channel 1, and then he'll give me another line that I'll put in a separate channel that's the full mix. That way I can listen to everything in my ears. And I'll have the MA only listen to that kick and snare channel. So that may limit me down to only listening to band 1 or 2 and 6 and 7. But the thing is, I can get some very specific reactive, effects and whatnot. And it helps simplify things for me, especially there are certain genres that I just maybe am not that interested in, and it's not for the lack of interest in lighting. It's just for the it's got ebbs and flows in places you don't imagine it does, or in general you're just not that used to that music, and so maybe it's a weak point for you. This helps me take out a lot of that guesswork to where I know, regardless of ebbs and flows, regardless of what I don't know what's coming next in the tracks, I can follow those highs and lows. The MA will follow those highs and lows for me. And then, I can bring my master back in, my group master back in. So, so let's say I take it out, we can see that it's reacting now. Me adding the fader master, or bringing the fader master back to 100, it essentially takes it out, but all it's doing is it's adding on top of that. So the fade is or not, yeah. So that kind of dim fade is all relative. My fader masters are all absolute. So the fader masters will always overtake the relative presets. So as soon as I figured that part out, I've started using that all the time. It has been a lifesaver in some instances. So
that tells you a little bit about how versatile the desk is and how much you can do and much. I mean, there's I've used MA for, I don't know, 10 years or 12 years or something, for real.
Yeah.
And I've never used the sound input. Never.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
But I
an
think
EDM
I'm going
show.
to now.
Yeah, no, it was an EDM show, and the first couple openers, they're not worried about giving them all the crazy stuff. So he was running MA2 on a MA3 light, and he ran the sound in, and he was able to follow those ebbs and flows and really just do. I mean, even just this is just a dim sound active. He was able to do certain effects where they would just kind of fly out with dim effects and whatnot, and do certain movements and whatnot. So this can continue growing. And like I said, I've only been using this for a couple weeks thoroughly at this point. There's so much more that you can do with sound, and it's crazy too, because I've barely seen any videos on YouTube for that.
No.
So that's where I started digging into
it's almost going to open up a world on its own.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now it does need to come with a big old asterisk. Read this at the bottom, where MA is not an audio desk. MA is not. No, it doesn't pick up all the bands. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to read all the music correctly. But for what you do get, it can do enough. So
it can help you.
It can help, absolutely. It doesn't need to be taken as a fix everything. Now I can just walk away from my desk and let the show run by itself.
I'll be in catering from now on.
Yeah, exactly. But the addition of it has been so incredibly resourceful. It's helped me in a few places. But and really the most important thing on my show file, if you want to show it real quick, most important thing, this is my last thing. See that clock right down there, bottom center?
Yes.
That thing has saved, that clock just being right there has saved me so many times, where it's like, oh wait, we're about to start, or we're in the middle of changeover, and okay, how much time do we have left?
Yeah.
That clock is so important. But yeah, no, I'm mainly just making fun, but it's been helpful. So
yeah, it is. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It has been eye-opening in many ways. We can tell everybody we had some technical difficulties before starting up this interview here. We worked for about an hour or two figuring everything out, but it has definitely been worth it. I think your show file is amazing, and I want to thank you for taking the time to do this.
I appreciate it. Likewise, this has been an absolute pleasure of mine too.
I hope to see you out there somewhere, and as I said, I will put a link to your video, on your channel down in the description, and I hope to see you somewhere else sometime.
Yeah, and can't wait to have you on one of mine as well.
That would be cool.